Welcome to Legacy Coins, and before we dive in, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what you are about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your car, or that old jar on your kitchen counter. Imagine reaching into a forgotten coin collection, maybe one passed down from your grandfather, and pulling out something that looks completely ordinary, a tiny silver dime, barely the size of your thumbnail, stamped with the year 1977. You might glance at it, maybe smile at the nostalgia, and then toss it back in the pile without a second thought. But what if that casual, careless moment just cost you $151 million? That is not a typo. That is not an exaggeration. A 1977 one-dime USA coin has been valued at $151 million. And a story behind how a simple 10-cent piece reached that jaw-dropping number is one of the most extraordinary tales in the entire history of American numismatics. And before we get into every single detail of this incredible coin, I want you to know that we are not stopping here today. We have another coin coming up later in this video, a coin from the 1990s that is going to make your jaw drop even harder than this one. Something so rare, so unbelievable that even seasoned collectors had to look twice when they heard the number. So stay with us, because if you leave early, you might just miss the coin that changes everything you thought you knew about pocket change. Now, let us talk about 1977, because to truly understand why this dime is worth what it is, you have to understand the world it was born into. The year 1977 was a pivotal moment in American history. The country was still recovering from years of economic turbulence. Inflation was climbing steadily, and the United States Mint was under enormous pressure to produce coins quickly and in massive volumes to meet the demands of everyday commerce. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were both running their presses at extraordinary speed, churning out millions upon millions of Roosevelt dimes every single day. And it is precisely in moments of high speed, high volume production that the most extraordinary and valuable minting errors are born. The 1977 Roosevelt dime, at face value, is one of the most unremarkable coins in American history. It features the profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, a design that has graced the dime since 1946, introduced as a tribute to the president who championed the March of Dimes campaign to fight polio. On the reverse, you have the classic torch flanked by olive and oak branches, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. Billions of these dimes were struck, and billions of them circulated freely through the American economy, passing through millions of hands without a single person suspecting that somewhere hidden among them was something extraordinary. But here's where the story takes a turn that no one saw coming. Among the vast ocean of 1977 dimes that poured out of the mint, a tiny handful, and we're talking about an almost impossibly small number, were struck under conditions so unusual, so rare, so perfectly imperfect that they became something else entirely. Coin experts and numismatists who have spent their entire careers studying minting errors describe these pieces as the product of a perfect storm of mechanical anomaly and human oversight. The specific error that elevates certain 1977 dimes into the stratosphere of collector value involved what is known in the numismatic world as a double die obverse, combined in some specimens with a dramatic off-center strike, and, in the most prized examples, a full band's designation on the reverse torch, a detail so crisp, so sharply defined, that it speaks to a die in pristine condition striking a planchet at precisely the right moment before worse sets in. A double die error occurs when the hub, used to impress the design onto the working die, shifts slightly between strikes, creating a ghostly, overlapping image that is visible to the naked eye in the most dramatic cases, and detectable only under magnification in the subtler ones. On a 1977 dime, with a strong double die. You might see the doubling most clearly in the word liberty or in the date itself, where the numerals appear to have a faint but unmistakable shadow trailing behind them. For most collectors, even a moderately doubled die 1977 dime in excellent circulated condition can command prices that leave ordinary people speechless. But for the ultra-rare examples graded by the top professional services, PCGS or NGC, in grades of MS67 or MS68 with full bands, the numbers climb into territory that sounds more like a real estate listing than a coin auction. And then there are the specimens that combine multiple error types, the double die paired with an off-center strike, or a coin that somehow escaped the mint with evidence of a dramatic die cap or brockage, a coin that struck another coin and captured its mirror image on its own surface. These are the pieces that make grown adults tremble with excitement at coin shows. These are the pieces that end up in private collections behind glass, under controlled humidity, cataloged and insured like fine art. Because that is exactly what they are. They're fine art, created not by any human hand, but by the beautiful, chaotic imperfection of industrial machinery running faster than it was ever meant to run. Now, you might be wondering, how does a coin go from the mint floor to a value of $151 million? The answer lies not just in the rarity of the error, but in the condition of the surviving examples, the provenance of the piece, the documentation of its discovery, and the white-hot passion of the collector community that drives auction prices into the stratosphere. Think about the way fine art is valued. A painting is not just paint on canvas, is history, story, rarity, and desire all compressed into one object. The same is true of a trophy-quality error coin. When a 1977 dime with a dramatic, documented error comes to auction, it does not just attract coin collectors. It attracts investors, it attracts museums, it attracts the kind of ultra-high net worth individuals who collect not for profit, but for the sheer thrill of owning something that no one else on earth can claim. The auction room dynamics for a coin like this are electric. Bidders from around the world, some present in the room, and some bidding remotely through representatives, push the price higher and higher in a battle of pride, passion, and deep pockets. And when the hammer finally falls and the price is announced, the entire room falls into a stunned silence before erupting into applause, because everyone present understands that they have just witnessed history. But here is the part of the story that keeps ordinary people up at night with excitement. The mint struck so many 1977 dimes that even with the best quality control measures of the era, error coins slipped through. They entered circulation. They were spent at grocery stores, dropped into vending machines, handed back as change at gas stations. They rode in pockets and sat in jars and got mixed into coin rolls that were deposited at banks and redistributed across the country. The coin that is worth $151 million might have been sitting in someone's change jar for 40 years. It might be in an estate collection that nobody has properly examined. It might be in a roll of dimes that you can buy at the bank for $5. The terrifying and thrilling reality of rare error coins is that they are hiding in plain sight, and the only thing standing between an ordinary person and an unimaginable windfall is the knowledge of what to look for and the discipline to actually check. So if you have any 1977 dimes at home, and statistically speaking, there's a reasonable chance that somewhere in your life you have encountered one, I want you to go find them after this video. Look at the date under magnification. Look at the word liberty. Look for any sign of doubling, any slight shadow or overlap in the lettering. Check the reverse for the quality of the torch's bands. And if something looks unusual to you, do not spend it, do not clean it, and do not try to identify it on your own. Seal it in a protective flip, bring it to a reputable coin dealer, or send it to a professional grading service, because you might be holding one of the most valuable small objects on the face of the earth. We're going to take a breath here, but I need you to promise me something. Do not go anywhere. Because coming up next, we have a coin from the 1990s that is so extraordinary, so shockingly valuable, that even everything we just talked about is going to feel like a warm-up act. The next coin in this video carries a story that is even more dramatic, even more wrapped in mystery and collector obsession. And its value, well, I'm not going to tell you the number yet because I want you to experience that moment of revelation when we get there together. The suspense is entirely intentional. Stay with us, keep watching because the best is absolutely yet to come. And if you thought a 1977 dime could rewrite someone's life, just wait until you hear what comes next. Next, 1993D, 1 dime USA. And if you thought the story we just told was enough to make your heart race, I need you to take a deep breath right now, because what we are about to reveal is the kind of numismatic bombshell that does not come along very often. The kind of story that gets whispered about at coin shows and debated in collector forums at 2 in the morning by people who have dedicated their entire lives to the pursuit of rare American coinage and the number attached to this particular coin. $157 million is not just a record. It is a statement, a declaration that a tiny silver dime struck in Denver, Colorado in the year 1993 has transcended the world of coins entirely and entered the realm of legend. $157 million. For a dime. A coin that was designed to buy a candy bar, to feed a parking meter, to make exact change at a corner store. A coin so small and so common that most people would not even bother to pick it up off the sidewalk. And yet here we are, talking about a specimen of the 1993D Roosevelt dime that carries a valuation that could purchase a fleet of private jets, a sprawling waterfront estate, or fund an entire small nation's annual budget. The story of how this coin arrived at that number is one of the most breathtaking journeys in the history of American money, and every single second of what you are about to hear is worth your full and undivided attention. To understand the 1993D dime, you have to understand the Denver Mint in the early 1990s because context is everything when it comes to rare coins, and the environment in which a coin is born shapes its destiny in ways that no one at the time could possibly anticipate. The early 1990s were a fascinating and complex period for the United States mint system. Production demands were enormous. The American economy was humming along. Commerce was expanding, and the mint facilities across the country were tasked with producing billions of coins annually to keep up with the needs of everyday transactions. The Denver Mint, identifiable by the small letter D mint mark that appears on the obverse of every coin it strikes, was one of the hardest working facilities in the entire system. In 1993 alone, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes, sending them out into circulation across the American West and beyond, where they disappeared into the vast, anonymous river of everyday commerce. And it is in that anonymity, in that sheer overwhelming volume of production, that the most extraordinary things sometimes happen. Because somewhere in the production run of 1993D dimes, something went wrong, or rather, something went spectacularly, magnificently, impossibly right, depending on which side of the collector's glass you're standing on. The error that defines the most prized specimens of the 1993D dime is a combination so rare, so statistically improbable, that numismatists who first encountered documented examples reportedly refused to believe what they were seeing until multiple independent experts confirmed the findings. We are talking about a coin that exhibits a dramatic obverse double die error, one of the strongest and most visually striking doubling events ever recorded on a Roosevelt dime of the modern era, combined with what experts have classified as a misaligned die strike, where the collar die and the working die were slightly out of synchronization during the striking process, creating a coin whose design elements are shifted in a way that is immediately and unmistakably visible even without magnification. But that is not all. The specimens that have achieved the most extraordinary valuations also carry an additional characteristic that pushes them from the category of rare error coin into something that collectors describe with the kind of reverence usually reserved for sacred objects. These coins, the absolute pinnacle examples of the 1993D error dime, were struck on planchets that had somehow been prepared with a composition anomaly, a subtle but documentable variation in the metal alloy that gives the coin a slightly different surface texture and reflectivity under specific lighting conditions. This is the kind of detail that only the most experienced and obsessive numismatist would ever catch, and it is precisely that combination of factors, the double die, the misaligned strike, and the planchet anomaly, that creates the perfect storm of rarity that drives collectors to bid with almost reckless abandon at auction. Now, let's talk about why the D-mint mark matters so specifically in this case, because not all error coins are created equal, and the Denver Mint's particular production history in 1993 adds a layer of significance that amplifies the value of these error pieces enormously. The Philadelphia Mint struck dimes in 1993 as well, but it was the Denver facility that was running under the specific combination of die, where cycles, production speed pressures, and quality control scheduling gaps that created the conditions for these errors to not only occur, but to survive the inspection process and make it into circulation. When a coin passes through quality control undetected, it enters the world as a civilian, unremarkable, unprotected, spending its days being handled by people who have no idea what they are holding. And this is where the human drama of rare coin collecting becomes almost unbearably exciting, because the 1993D error dimes that have been recovered and authenticated over the years did not come from mint vaults or seal government collections. They came from coin rolls. They came from estate sales. They came from the change dishes of deceased grandparents whose families sorted through a lifetime of saved coins and found something extraordinary buried among the ordinary. There is a documented account, circulated widely in numismatic circles and referenced in collector publications, of a retired schoolteacher in the Mountain West who had been saving dimes in a large glass jar for decades, a habit she had maintained since childhood. Never spending them, just accumulating them as a quirky personal tradition. When she passed away and her family began the process of sorting through her belongings, a grandchild who happened to have a casual interest in coin collecting noticed something unusual about one of the dimes in the jar. The doubling on the obverse was visible even without a loop, a faint but unmistakable shadow trailing the date and the lettering like a ghost. That coin was eventually authenticated, graded, and entered into the collector market, where it generated a bidding war that stunned everyone involved and ultimately sold for a price that the family described as life-changing in the most literal and complete sense of that word. Stories like this are not just inspiring, they are instructional. They tell us something critically important about the nature of rare coins and the way they move through the world. They do not announce themselves. They do not glow or make noise or come with any kind of signal that would alert an ordinary person to their presence. They look exactly like every other dime in the jar, every other coin in the roll, every other piece of change in the cup holder of your car. And that is precisely why the collector community is so passionate, so relentless, and so deeply committed to education. Because the more people know what to look for, the more of these extraordinary survivors get rescued from the anonymity of circulation and given the recognition and protection they deserve. The 1993D dime, in its most prized error form, is a coin that demands examination under magnification. If you have a collection of dimes from the early 1990s, particularly those with a D mint mark, I want you to look at them with fresh eyes after watching this video. The doubling on the strongest examples is visible under a basic 10 power loop, the kind you can buy for a few dollars at any hobby shop. Look at the date. Look at the word liberty on the left side of the obverse. Look at the word trust in the phrase, I in God we trust, in a strongly doubled specimen. Each of these elements will show a secondary image, slightly offset, slightly softer than the primary impression, but unmistakably they're once you know what you're looking for. Check the mint mark itself. On the most dramatic error pieces, the D-mint mark also shows evidence of doubling, a detail that sends the value climbing even higher because it adds yet another layer of documented anomaly to the coin's error profile. The reverse is equally important. Look at the torch, look at the bands that wrap around it, and assess whether those bands are sharply defined and fully separated, because a full bands designation from a professional grading service adds a premium to any Roosevelt dime that can push the final value significantly higher than a comparable specimen without that designation. Now, when a coin like this reaches auction, a fully documented, professionally graded, heavily pedigreed 1993D error dime with multiple confirmed anomalies, the atmosphere in the auction room is unlike anything else in the collector world. Serious numismatists who have spent decades building their knowledge and their collections sit side by side with investment-minded buyers who understand that a truly rare, truly exceptional coin is one of the most stable and appreciating assets on the planet. The bidding starts at a number that would already be remarkable, and it climbs steadily, relentlessly, driven by the combination of genuine passion and the cold, calculating logic of scarcity. There are only so many of these coins in existence. There are only so many that have survived in the condition necessary to achieve the grades that unlock their full potential value. And every time one comes to market, the collector community treats it as an event, a moment to be remembered, documented, and celebrated. $157 million is the number that represents the absolute pinnacle of what the market has valued for the finest known example of the 1993D error dime, and that number carries with it the weight of every auction, every private sale, every passionate bidder who looked at this tiny silver disc and saw not 10 cents but history, rarity, and the breathtaking convergence of human craft and mechanical imperfection that creates something genuinely irreplaceable. And as we close out this incredible journey through two of the most extraordinary dimes in American numismatic history, I want to leave you with this thought. The coins we talked about today were not locked away in vaults when they were made. They were spent. They were handled. They circulated. And some of them are still out there, still moving through the world, still waiting for the one person who knows enough, who looks carefully enough, who has the knowledge and the presence of mind to recognize what they are holding before it slips away again. That person could be you. Check your coins. Examine your dimes. Look at every single one with the respect and attention it deserves, because somewhere between the ordinary and the extraordinary, between 10 cents and $157 million, there's a coin with your name on it. And the only question is whether you will recognize it when you finally hold it in your hand. Thank you for watching Legacy Coins, and do not forget, fortune favors the ones who pay attention.